Kathy Bennetts, it's always a pleasure to have you back to Australia as an Australian. And you are setting, in my opinion, one of the greatest works of the 80s, Artifact by William Forsythe, who you know very, very well, and you know this work very, very well. Tell me your history with Artifact.
Okay.
Its evolution in a way, because it's probably evolved for you.
Yeah.
But what is your personal history with Artifact?
Well, my first time, I wasn't there when Bill made it. That was 84. I joined Ballet Frankfurt full-time in 89, but I was coming as a guest to teach years before. So the first time I saw Artifact, I think, was around 86. And it just blew my mind, actually. The curtain went down and I just sat there. And I didn't know how to absorb it. It literally changed my life.
Yeah.
And I've heard so many people say that. It's not just me.
So when the curtain went down and you saw it for the first time, what were you thinking? Or were you stunned? Or...
I was stunned. I was overwhelmed. It was such an experience. You know, the full Artifact evening is 4 acts, and it involves spectacular, like cinema-like images of lighting and characters walking through the piece. So it's almost a play. It's an homage to ballet for Bill. It's his homage to ballet, but it's also so theatrical and magical. And it has like a magical person walking through it in a big dress and a Madame Pompadour wig, and it has an annoying man walking around and knocking on the stage and looking, you don't know what he's doing. And then there's another character that we call the Mud Woman, who is this sort of nebulous person that tells people what to do. They follow her.
Amazing.
So you're sort of confused by what's going on, but somehow at the end it all comes together. And the finale is really, in my opinion, I've never had this discussion with Bill, but I'm sure he thinks the same. It's sort of a comment on fascism.
Really?
And in Germany, to do a comment on fascism in the 80s was quite a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like this energy coming from the stage, people in masses following each other, power of the masses, and it's so breathtakingly horrible and fabulous at the same time that I just sat there like, whoa. It was like a wave came out into the audience.
Which is why it's so exciting for me as a first-time director to bring work like this. Because personally, Bill's work, I always go back to the idea that it is so important.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
He isn't... he wouldn't maybe describe his work as that, but as an outsider looking in, it's so important to bring work like this to the Australian Ballet, to Australia. This is the first time Australia is seeing Artifact Suite. And again, I have the same reaction. I look at the rehearsals, you're just fresh from the studio, rehearsing the dancers. When I come in to watch rehearsals, I just realize how genius the work is, how complicated and mathematical the work is.
Totally.
And how important the work is.
Yeah, it's a major work of the 20th century, I would say even. I think Bill, it was his first work as director. Can you imagine?
Amazing. Go with your instincts.
Yeah, and it has evolved greatly. I mean, as you know, Artifact Suite is a compilation of all the dancing sections put together because basically companies wanted to do it, but it was a very difficult work to give to companies with 4 acts and these characters coming in, and you couldn't just do it easily. You had to bring people in, and it was very difficult. So at one point he decided to just do all the dancing sections and to give more dancers the chance to dance it, actually more companies the chance to have it.
Yeah.
So I think it's, when I did it for the Polish National Ballet in Warsaw, the director at the reception afterwards, I'll never forget that, he said, there was life before Artifact and now there's life after Artifact, and this has changed the company totally.
I feel the same way about the dancers. And I think you'll agree with me, you can sense the hunger to dance this work, the hunger to learn this approach. I'm curious about, Bill's relationship to the music, because as a first-time director in Frankfurt, to take on music as iconic as Bach, Chaconne and
absolutely.
all of that.
But Bill played an instrument. He played the saxophone when he was young. No, clarinet, I think. Anyway, a wind instrument. I remember him telling me his mother got mad because he left it in the snow. It was too heavy to carry. But his grandfather was a conductor. And so he knows music inside out. He teaches sometimes when he is in the studio and the pianist is playing, he'll teach them things they didn't think of before. He really knows music.
Well, it makes you think of George Balanchine, because Balanchine's relationship with music was because of his experience and education with music. I mean, he knew music so well. And interestingly, I think you can always sense when a creator, a choreographer, really understands music and doesn't understand music. Because what's relevant a lot of the time is how dancers and choreographers don't have an intimate relationship with music. They hear music, we hear music, we dance to music.
They don't breathe it, they don't live it.
At times we don't, dancers and choreographers don't live and breathe it. But Bill and, Balanchine, in a way, as a comparison, have a true knowledge of it.
And he really demands. I did a section today, it was just a little section of like 8 bars of music, and I said, I have a memory of this hour-and-a-half rehearsal in Frankfurt of just those 8 bars, because you're like, no, you still, no. And it was about the music, about delaying and catching up. And when you talk about the Bach Chaconne, it's even more than just that. He chose Nathan Milstein playing the Bach Chaconne, who was in his day the most radical violinist. It's a radical version of Bach Chaconne. It's not the usual, and he had his huge.
It's not the usual Perlman, which is what Itzhak Perlman, which is a version I have listened to.
It's
over
very
and over.
different,
But it is very different.
He really pulls out Rallentando, and it's extreme, and that's what drew Bill to it, was actually that level of stretch and pull back. And I always say to the dancers, listen to Nathan. It's like you have to be able to breathe it as he's breathing it.
And that's essentially about, in my opinion, being in the moment. Truly listening, not just thinking you're listening or wondering what count it's on, but like truly listening to, the playing, or whether it's live or recorded. And I think that's what separates true artists, from people who just kind of dance.
Exactly.
They're the ones that really listen to
There's
the music.
a lot of lack of musicality in the ballet world these days, I find, and it's something that frees you when you really, when you really breathe it and feel it and understand it. It just gives you such a different sensation. I mean, I just had a rehearsal now where I've taught a certain section, and so we went back and now we're starting, they know it, so let's go back to the beginning.
Always the fun part.
And I realized how much they don't listen, and I made them do it like again and again. I was like, no, listen, really listen. It's, they think they're listening, but they're not. So you have to really click them into that, because you can't dance evenly when it's Nathan Milstein playing.
I remember Bill telling me once about the one. And he's like, the one is the woo. Not the It's the woo of the one. Which means it's on it.
Absolutely.
It was such an interesting way of describing how to be on the music.
Well, you've always got to be ready to be in advance, so you're on it. You know what I mean? It's like,
So, tell me what how you connect to
Artifact.
To Artifact, but to Bill's movement in a way.
Well, I as a young dancer in Stuttgart, I got big opportunities with Bill used me, and I just immediately connected with what he was doing, and it changed my career also. When I think about it, the meeting Bill, it was through him that I got promoted to soloist, and well, half soloist. What do you call that here? I mean, it's like soloist in the German system. It's
Mm-hmm,
like,
mm-hmm.
so I got noticed, and then I got lots of other things to dance because of Bill, and I just understood, I think, at that time what he wanted. I found it exciting. It was something different. It's what I was looking for when I left Australia, quite frankly, because
Really?
I left as a 21-year-old, and I wanted to experience the big wide world, and landed there with him. And so, it was like my first rehearsal day was with Bill.
Was it?
As dancing with him.
Amazing.
I mean, in the old days, what happened was I did class. Marcia Hyde said to me, "When can you start?" And I said, "Now."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Okay, have I told you this story?
No.
You have rehearsal in 15 minutes, and this is your partner." And it was Bill, and it was a run-through of voluntaries.
My God.
And so he talked me through the whole thing in the Court of Ballet, but...
was he accommodating?
Oh,
or was he like, come
he
on,
was
pulling you here and
wonderful.
there?
Bill was so generous, and he was like the best partner.
Was he?
The best partner ever.
great.
That's why he does these amazing pas de deux.
Yeah.
Because he understands that,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
imagine in this day and age, first of all, you wouldn't be allowed to do a rehearsal without having your insurance and all that, and having signed your contract. And so I just sort of walked in, and there he was, and that was the beginning for me. And
That's
so.
amazing. And you never look back.
And I never looked back, yeah. And actually, that was 1970, January 1976. We're talking half
Wow.
a century ago.
Wow.
And so he's been part of my life since then. I mean, first of all in Stuttgart, and then I came back as a guest teacher before I joined Frankfurt.
Mm.
But I have to say the time that he was most generous to me was when I ran Antwerp, the Royal Ballet of Flanders. He just was so generous to come and to work with the dancers.
That's amazing.
And so we toured his ballets all over the world because he was happy that somebody was, doing these works,
Yeah, great.
like the full artifact we did and the full impressing the Tsar and other things. And he was just so generous because he wants people to see the work, and he wants dancers to dance it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, people are seeing this work, and dancers are dancing this work, and I'm thrilled as a director to bring it here.
I think it's a perfect beginning.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Start with a bang. Really.
Well, he started with a bang in Frankfurt, clearly.
Yeah, and I think it's really, they are sort of like, whoa, at some of the stuff. And I'm like, okay, it's time you knew this stuff.
Yeah,
It's
agreed,
time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So when the curtain goes down, you've already described your experience. How do you think audiences here, having not seen this work, they really don't have a reference apart from YouTubing small clips?
I really don't know.
What do you think they will experience?
I think they'll be exhilarated, I hope. I mean, I haven't experienced an audience that wasn't, quite frankly, so I don't see why Australia should be different.
Yeah.
I think it should be, very exciting for everyone. I think they'll immediately recognise the complexity of it and the push for the dancers, because you see it right away that, whoa, that's a lot going on, and it's difficult. You're aware of the fact that it's pushing them.
Yeah.
And I think that is exciting for the audience to see.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
Great.
I'd be very surprised if they didn't react like that, that they weren't exhilarated by it.
Well, Kathy, welcome home.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back to Australia, back to the Australian Ballet, and can't wait to see it on stage.
I hope it'll be looking great.
It will be. It will.
Okay.